welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Jennifer Thomas, pianist, violinist, composer, and Yamaha recording artist. I'm so glad to hear that so many of you enjoyed my last tutorial for A Beautiful Storm, so thank you so much for that. By the way, I just wanted to say I hope that you guys are all staying as well and healthy as you can during this pandemic and interesting time in our lives right now. Please take a second to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that little bell button so that you can stay notified for future tutorials as well as my other content such as vlogs, official music videos, and behind the scenes. Okay, so if you are new to my tutorials, how this works is the first half of the video is sort of a mini piano lesson where I go over fingering, technique, and other questions that people have asked about these songs. And then the last half of the video is the overhead shot of the keyboard with the MIDI score coming down, and you can watch my hands play the full song. As always, you can find all of my sheet music on my website, jenniferthomasmusic.com, in digital PDF, physical songbooks, and digital songbooks. You can also find a small portion of my catalog on musicnotes.com. I do transcribe and compose all of my own music, and so please support me by downloading a legal copy of the music and don't be a pirate. Okay, so today's tutorial is for Time by Hans Zimmer. While the last two tutorials of mine were both original songs from older albums, we're kind of skipping ahead now to my most recent album, The Fire Within, that was released in 2018, and this is one of the songs from that album. The reason why I decided to bump this song up into the tutorial series is because I literally just last week got the print license to make the digital PDF available for you guys. It took me about the last 18 months of my life to secure the print license for this song, and it was a lot of work. It involved months of email communication with various publishers, several denials where they said my rendition would be competition for what they already had released. But eventually my request did get escalated up to one of the senior licensing agents at Alfred Publishing, who then had to send my arrangement on to Hans Zimmer himself to get final approval. So the fact that we're sitting here today having this tutorial for this song and the sheet music is now available is a huge deal. I just want to take a quick second and thank Alfred Publishing, Warner Brothers Publishing, and also, of course, the amazing Hans Zimmer for making this possible and allowing me to share the music with you guys. So if you're watching this tutorial, I assume you're familiar with the song Time, but if not, I'll just let you know. It's from the movie Inception that came out in 2010 with Leonardo DiCaprio, and the amazing score was written by Hans Zimmer. I've been a fan of Hans Zimmer's music for so many years, and not to brag, but I've kind of been a fan of his music even before it was cool to be a fan. Some of my favorite signature moves that Hans Zimmer puts into his music is, for one, the really long, slow build that he does when he's trying to ramp up a song. He also has a very recognizable use of horns in his music, and so whenever I hear that horn section in score, it's usually a dead giveaway for me that it's Hans Zimmer.
I booked the craziest, biggest brass section I think ever assembled in a studio. 6 bass trombones, 6 tenor trombones, 4 tubas in the middle, and 6 French horns above. The force when they were really blowing, you know, it's a physical force, you know, it hits you.
The song Time from this movie soundtrack has been a huge source of inspiration for me for so many years. I think I have listened to this song probably at least 1,000 times on my playlists. I never get sick of it. It's just one of those songs where whenever I listen to it, it just really lights a fire under me and makes me want to compose the best music that I possibly can. You guys know that I don't do cover songs very often, so when I do, I'm very picky about the songs that I choose to do. Time in particular was actually a really difficult song for me to cover because I already felt that it was so perfect in every way. And so for me to actually do an arrangement of it, I had to figure out a way to build upon it and not take away from the beauty of the original. I'm sure that you're more than ready to start this tutorial, and I'm very excited to do it for you, so let's get going. So As I said earlier, one of the signature things that Hans Zimmer does in his music is this big, long, slow build. And Time is no exception. He starts out the song with these really simple chords, which then build and build with other instruments and themes until by the time you get to the end of the song, you have the most epic build climax ever. I feel like he does such a good job at these long, drawn-out crescendos that it's the anticipation that captures your interest until you get to that big final moment that is just so satisfying. Start right at the beginning with measure 1, and these chords here should almost be a whisper. If you're not someone who's used to playing at a pianissimo level on a piano, it might take a little bit of trial and error to figure out that right balance to strike the key. If you play it too soft, you won't get a sound out of it, and too loud, it's too aggressive. You have to find that right balance. Something else I want to point out that might help you get that pianissimo sound is using the soft pedal on your foot pedals. The soft pedal is the furthest pedal to the left, and it's also called the una corda pedal, which means one string. The way that the soft pedal works is if you actually look in the inside of your piano, you're going to notice that most of the notes have 3 strings on them. And what the soft pedal does, if you push that down, it shifts the keys up so that the hammer will only strike one of the 3 strings, which creates a softer sound on the piano. So those soft chords at the beginning need to be played so pianissimo like this. Very, very soft as you can possibly play. So this song basically repeats the same chord patterns over and over every 8 measures. And with every section that you surpass, the intensity and the dynamics grow and grow with each 8 measure section. There isn't an exact science to how exactly you need to play the dynamics, but the idea is to build. I do have dynamic suggestions written into the sheet music, but basically the idea is to create that long, slow build. Okay, so I would like to move along and get to some of the more difficult passages of the music. And so if you want to jump over to measure 25, this is not exactly the most difficult section, but I just want to point out how I play the right hand notes. So the section I'm talking about is this. So your left hand is going to be coming up and playing that first note of those little runs right there. But on the first grouping of each measure, your left hand obviously has to play the bass note down here, which means you can't be in 2 places at once. So you're going to be doing a double note with your thumb on the first grouping like this. Okay, so a more difficult passage I really want to spend a little bit of time on starts at measure 37, and it's these long cascading runs that go down. I've actually had a few pianists who have been tagging me because they've been trying to learn the song, and one of them even said she felt like she didn't have enough hands to play this part of the song. And so I just want to help you with this section. And first off, I want to make a confession to you guys. I was classically trained since the time I was 5 years old, but just because I was classically trained, it doesn't mean that I necessarily still have a very strict classical mindset when it comes to practicing and even performing. I feel like it's far too easy to get frustrated with music when you feel like it has to be done a certain way and it's just not working for you. So I say adapt. Music needs to be enjoyable, and if there's something or some way that I've written the music that isn't working for you, then let's adapt it. This entire section at measure 37, for example, can be very difficult to play, but I'm going to show you another alternative way that you can adapt it to make it more simple for you to play. So if you play this as written, there's a lot going on in both hands as you cascade down this run. I'm going to play this slowly for you so you can actually see what's going on there. So just as in my previous tutorial for illumination where I talked about patterns, there's a lot of patterns going on here, and the trick is to just recognize the patterns, get them in your fingers slowly, and then speed them up. So here's your pattern. It repeats it 3 times down the piano. If that's too difficult for you, again, like I said, we're going to adapt this for you. You're going to play that bass note with your left hand, and you're going to do that whole run in your right hand so you're not having to juggle two at once. And it's going to sound like this. Do you see how much simpler that is? And when you speed it up to full tempo, it's going to be like this. Okay? So in the end, we're accomplishing the same run. It's just one is more simple and one is more technically challenging. Same run, almost sounds the same, but let's adapt it for what works for you. And like I'm always saying in my tutorials, it's so important to practice slowly. And I know it takes so much patience to do this, but I promise you that if you can practice slowly and correctly, your muscles are going to memorize the movements, and it's actually called proprioception. You get proprioception in your muscles. They memorize it so that when you play it fast, you don't even have to think about it because your muscles and hands already know what to do. Okay, the next section I want to cover is a doozy, and it starts at measure 41, and it's the section that has these huge arpeggios in your left hand. I'm going to be honest with you that this section is even difficult for me. I have to practice this over and over very slowly, and then eventually speed it up when I perform it live, because it is really fast. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's difficult. A little tip I want to give you, and again, I feel like I keep repeating myself, but again, it's about recognizing the patterns in the music. And this is how I break music down in my mind, and these are the things that help me learn the songs that I'm trying to learn. As you know, arpeggios are just broken chords that go up and down the keyboard. It's going to make it easier on your mind to remember what comes next when you're actually playing this at full speed. So if you can remember A, E, G, and D. Those are your landing spots. So now that I have it in my mind where these chords are moving and shifting, I have what I like to call a landing spot. So what I mean by that is I know that when I do this A minor arpeggio up and down, that I am going to next land on the E minor. But again, it's so important to practice these arpeggios slowly, and I mean slow, like this. Eventually speed it up, and guys, at full tempo it's crazy. It's like this. So this section is a little bit harder to adapt if it's too difficult for you because your right hand is already playing chords in the upper register. But there is a part at measure 42 where you can bring your right hand down and give your left hand a little bit of break by shouldering some of the responsibility of those arpeggios. And what I mean is like this. At measure 42, the difficult way is having your left hand play all of it. So slow practice for this section is very slow. You really have got to do this slow to get this. Okay, so by the time you speed it up, it's going to be like this. Okay, so the very last section that I want to cover with you guys is at measure 45, and this is where you have those triplet runs in your right hand that go up and down. This might throw you off a little bit because you are having to switch into triplet mode, whereas before you were playing in 30-second notes in groups of 4. And you also have to concentrate on landing these big chords with your left hand at the same time. I actually suggest taking your hands separate here, starting with your right hand, and let's just try to get those triplets. Again, this is all about the patterns, and so you have a pattern like this. There's one triplet, and you are going to move your hand up, move it up again, okay? That's how that works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And then in your left hand, you have these big chords. Put it all together. Again, do this really slowly. And then you can eventually speed it up. Okay. So if this section is particularly difficult for you and you can't find a way around it, let's adapt it. And the best way to adapt this section is either play the triplets or the chords, but not both. So you could essentially just do the right hand like this, or you could just do the chords. Okay. So So I think we covered all of the most difficult passages of the song. The rest is pretty self-explanatory. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial. And if you liked it, don't be shy, give it a thumbs up. If you have any more questions about this song or any of my other tutorials, go ahead and leave me a comment below and I will answer you as soon as I can. Alright, so next you're going to get to see the overhead shot of my hands playing the song as well as the MIDI score coming down, which, by the way, I've had some really hilarious comments from you guys saying that it looks like Tetris or Guitar Hero, so I'm glad that it's entertaining for you. But without further ado, let's get to it.